Today we are back with a mock draft, first one of the off season, getting ready for our drafts coming up in the month of August. But we got a 12-team PPR mock draft on Sleeper. I think we're going to start with the ninth pick in the draft. I feel like if you get to decide your draft order, obviously you're going to want a top three pick in the draft. Number one, favorably with the Christian McCaffrey available. But what we've known over the years that the middle picks in the first round, so we're talking 5, 6, 7, 8, really gives you an unfair disadvantage in these picks compared to the beginning of the first round and the end of the first round. But we're going to put ourselves at the number 9 position. We're going to start at number 9, and we'll see how this ends up going. All right, so this draft starts like any other draft really does. Christian McCaffrey, Dalvin Cook, I'd rather over Derrick Henry, especially in PPR. Alvin Kamara, a bunch of running backs going off the board. First wide receiver actually goes Tyreek Hill right before us. Not that I was thinking about a wide receiver, but first 6, 7 picks in the draft, you have to, in a one quarterback league, no super flex, it's got to be running back. Don't even think about flirting with a wide receiver or a tight end until you get into the 8, 9, 10, and then later category. But let's see what we got available to us in the first round. All right, so top guys, Nick Chubb, Davante Adams, Travis Kelce, Aaron Jones. In a PPR league, I'm definitely not considering Nick Chubb in the first round here. Definitely at a severe disadvantage for Nick Chubb not getting those targets. So I'm not going to consider him. Aaron Jones is intriguing with the Aaron Rodgers commitment to this year in Green Bay. People forget Aaron Jones finishes at number 2 and number 5 running back the past 2 years in that Green Bay offense. So Davante Adams, Travis Kelce, or Aaron Jones really the thing I'm deciding between. And like I said, you can get these wide receivers later in drafts. I'm going to hammer this running back. Aaron Jones, I think, is the move if I'm not going to go Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce, a decent pick in the end of the first round just because he's been the number 1 tight end 5 straight years. Unbelievable consistency. You cannot go wrong at the end of the first round draft in a Travis Kelce. He's not going to lose you your league. I guarantee it unless he gets injured. But we are going to go with that running back, Aaron Jones. Too much upside in that Green Bay offense now that we know Aaron Rodgers is going to play this year. So Aaron Jones is going to be the move for us. All right, let's see what comes back around in the second round to us. Okay, it looks like Travis Kelce, Davante Adams all go off the board. Steph Diggs. I'm looking for a running back, and I'm not really liking what I'm seeing. Joe Mixon, top available running back. I mean, he does has upside to be a top 6 running back this year, but with the injury concern, the offensive line concern, Joe Mixon not a guy that I'm looking to go after here. I really like DK Metcalf and DeAndre Hopkins in a PPR league, but DeAndre Hopkins is going to be more heavily targeted in his offense compared to DK Metcalf, more of a deep target kind of guy. So in a PPR league, I'm going to give the edge to DeAndre Hopkins, and we're going to pair DeAndre Hopkins with Aaron Jones at the first and second round. All right, looks like we got a steady dose of running back, wide receiver, with a couple tight ends, Darren Waller and George Kittle going as they should in the late second, early third rounds. See what we got here on the board. Okay, looks like Keenan Allen goes right before us. That easily would have been my pick. Keenan Allen, people forget, 16.7 fantasy points per game over the last 4 years. That is incredible consistency from Keenan Allen. Kind of slept on as wide receiver 1 just because he doesn't have that elite speed or that big body like a DeAndre Hopkins to go win at the catch point, but such a consistent wide receiver. The floor on Keenan Allen is insane. With the offensive line improvements in Los Angeles, getting a top 3 center from Green Bay and drafting a guard in the first round. Really love what Justin Herbert's going to be able to do, and Keenan Allen, his number 1 target. I would have loved to have him right there. Not a huge fan of Josh Jacobs, the top running back on the board available. Miles Sanders still available for us. Not liking Miles Sanders with that situation with Jalen Hurts. We don't know if the Philadelphia Eagles offense, what it's going to look like, if they're going to be able to move the ball. Probably poor game script in addition, that team being so beat up. I think Allen Robinson is clearly the move here. We pair Allen Robinson with DeAndre Hopkins. We're looking at a very scary wide receiver core, and we already got our running back in the first round. So I think Allen Robinson is going to be an amazing pick for us right here. I'm not really considering quarterbacks in the first 3 rounds at all. Patrick Mahomes, I'm not drafting him in almost any league. However, we know The sweet spot for quarterback is that 4th through 7th round kind of pick where your Dak Prescott, your Kyler Murrays from years in the past have gone, and they end up as quarterback 1 and 2 potentially. So that's really where I'm looking at quarterbacks. I'll take a look here. Okay, so top quarterback Josh Allen. That is intriguing. Lamar Jackson goes as the number 2 quarterback. I would not draft Lamar Jackson over a Josh Allen and a Kyler Murray. Very interesting. Top running back David Montgomery. David Montgomery, one of my least favorite picks this year in fantasy. Over 65% of his fantasy points from a year ago came in the last 6 games of the regular season. And I mean, the defense he was facing in those games were absolutely abysmal. I'm not liking David Montgomery. With Damon Williams coming over and Tariq Cohen coming back from injury, I think his receiving usage is going to come down significantly. David Montgomery, a guy I'm not even considering here. Chris Carson's an interesting pick. Chris Carson has some injury concerns, but I mean, in the 4th round, this is pretty solid value. I'm going to go with Kyler Murray or Josh Allen. I think Kyler Murray's the move. Before his shoulder injury last year, Kyler Murray was on pace to obliterate the quarterback 1 overall number. So if he stays healthy, I think his rushing upside is too great. They didn't add a featured back. They added James Conner, but nothing I'm really worried about. Kyler Murray's still going to have that rushing potential in the red zone, along with his passing ability with DeAndre Hopkins, Christian Kirk, A.J. Green added. So I think Kyler Murray's going to be our move. Going a little bit down over a Josh Allen. However, like I said, the upside is too great for Kyler Murray, both rushing and passing. I'm taking Kyler Murray in the 4th round. All right, so now we're going to have to wait a good bit. That's why I wanted to go with Kyler Murray, because I knew that quarterback was not going to be available, or Josh Allen. So I got that solid quarterback to pair along with elite running back and 2 elite wide receivers. So I'm feeling good about where this draft is going so far. All right, so we're in a good position here. Mark Andrews, top player on the board. Mark Andrews definitely a safe tight end. However, there's a lot of new weapons in Baltimore that Lamar Jackson is going to have to feed. Sammy Watkins, drafted a wide receiver. Hollywood Brown still around. So I'm fading Mark Andrews just a little bit, and I think the move here is going to be to go with another wide receiver. Kareem Hunt's an interesting pick here in a PPR because he is the feature receiving back for the Cleveland Browns. We know the Cleveland Browns are going to be constantly moving the ball on the ground. However, we've seen Kareem Hunt in the red zone actually put up significant targets and touchdown upside. So that's definitely an intriguing play. Tyler Lockett, a lot of people are down on Tyler Lockett just because the volatility in his game. 1 week he's up, 1 week he's down. But very consistent in the fact that he's putting up solid average numbers. Yes, it's going to be up and down like I talked about, but he's going to be a top 24 wide receiver. So in a PPR league, I think I'm looking to grab Tyler Lockett as my flex play and hope I can get a solid running back on the other end. Okay, so Kareem Hunt and Myles Gaskin do go. Those are guys we were definitely looking to grab if they came around to us in the 6th round. Don't end up getting him, but let's look at some of the guys available. OBJ, not touching him with a 10-foot pole. We've seen what he's done. He gets injured a lot. He's on a very run-heavy team that excelled without him at the end of last season. Let's not forget that. Odell Beckham Jr., I'm not looking to have the ceiling that he's had in previous years. Justin Herbert would be a very, very good pick if we didn't already have Kyler Murray. So kind of unfortunate there. We could have grabbed Chris Carson over Kyler Murray and then gotten Justin Herbert. That would have been ideal. But sometimes you never know what's going to fall to you. Javonte Williams looks to be the best running back on the board here. However, we don't know if he's going to have that role with a Melvin Gordon to start this season. So I think Javonte Williams is more of a late season kind of play, kind of like Jonathan Taylor was. He really got to go in later on in the season. But Javonte Williams as our running back 2, decent value. A couple other running backs on the table here. Mike Davis, Leonard Fournette, Melvin Gordon. Guys, Mike Davis, we've seen what he did in Carolina last year as a backup to Christian McCaffrey. We love that production. And we saw Todd Gurley last year on this Atlanta Falcons team be very efficient in the red zone. Not so much in the passing game, which kind of limited his upside. But in the red zone, they looked to hand the ball off to Todd Gurley. So I think Mike Davis over Javonte Williams, because Mike Davis is going to allow us to have that week 1 startability, as Javonte Williams is more of a later in the season kind of back. So Mike Davis is our RB2 in a PPR. We've seen last year his target, his receiving ability Really like Mike Davis this late in the draft as our running back number 2. I really like what we're looking in this draft right now. Kyler Murray, Aaron Jones, Mike Davis, Allen Robinson, DeAndre Hopkins, and Tyler Lockett. So we still need a tight end, but we're looking good on all the 6 main positions. Let's see what we got on the board available to us here. This is really the dead part of the draft where you're getting guys that you really do not feel comfortable starting at all. Glad we already got our 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers. Tight end, I'm not a huge fan of Dallas Goedert with Zach Ertz still looks like staying in Philadelphia this year. And Jalen Hurts, we've seen the volume through the air is not there. So Dallas Goedert, I'm fading a little bit compared to other people. So I'm not excited to take Dallas Goedert here. Looking at some flexibility. Chase Claypool, I believe, is the second wide receiver in Pittsburgh, not Philadelphia, Pittsburgh that you want to own. I like Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool. Guys, I'm thinking about considering here James Conner out of Arizona. We saw Kenyon Drake last year, first-round pick in fantasy, early second-round pick, ended up being a huge bust. Still ended up as a top 24 running back just because the goal line worked. Kenyon Drake actually 21 goal line carries a year ago. That was third in the league. So, yes, Kyler Murray took a lot away from Kenyon Drake's ability to run the ball. That offense, we're not really suited for a workhorse running back. Chase Edmonds in the receiving game took away from Kenyon Drake's upside as well, which we think James Conner is going to have the same role as Kenyon Drake. So, a top 12 running back potentially if he gets that red zone work that Kenyon Drake got. We assume that James Conner is going to file right into Kenyon Drake's role, not in the receiving game. We'll let Chase Edmonds do that. But with the red zone upside that Kenyon Drake saw last year, I think James Conner is a decent backup running back when we have Mike Davis as our RB2. So something to be desired there. So we'll go with James Conner to be our third string running back. Okay, couple of the top tight ends. Dallas Goedert still on the board. Mike Gesicki, Miami. I think Mike Gesicki is getting blown way out of proportion where he's going in drafts. I mean, when you think about all the weapons on the Miami Dolphins, Will Fuller, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Parker. I mean, there are so many mouths to feed on that Miami offense. I can't see Mike Gesicki having another season comparable to what he did last year. So I'm not high on Mike Gesicki there, even though we do need a tight end. Dallas Goedert, already talked about him, not a huge fan. If we needed a quarterback, Tom Brady and Joe Burrow, decent options there this late in the draft. However, we got Kyler Murray, so we don't have to worry about it. Michael Carter and Trey Sermon are the 2 guys I'm looking at. Michael Carter for the Jets, a receiving back, kind of scat back. We don't know if he can handle a full workload, 3-down back, so I'm not excited for him right here in the draft, but PPR, so we do like the receiving ability. Trey Sermon, however, if he's able to be, we've seen, the number 1 running back in San Francisco is an absolute fantasy monster. Okay, Raheem Mostert cannot stay healthy. We've seen each and every season he finds a way to get injured. Not that we hope he gets injured or anything. However, if Raheem Mostert is to go down with an injury, looks like Trey Sermon could be the number 2 running back for this team. And if he's able to get those touches in this San Francisco offense, we know Kyle Shanahan is an offensive wizard. Trey Sermon, one of the most elite handcuffs this year in fantasy. Really like this value. He could definitely turn into a league winner at this ADP if he's able to get that starting job with Raheem Mostert going down. So I think Trey Sermon is definitely a solid pick this late in the draft. All right, so we still need to fill out our tight end position, but I'm not mind waiting on tight end as there's a lot of guys later in drafts that I think will give you better value than some of the ones that we saw earlier in the draft, like Mike Gesicki and Dallas Goedert. Okay, Tyler Boyd and Zach Moss at the top of this list. Tyler Boyd, I think, is getting a bad rap this offseason. We know that Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are going to be the number 2 and the future wide receivers of this Bengals team. However, Tyler Boyd's still that slot receiver that we think Joe Burrow will be able to carry 3 wide receivers on this pass-heavy team, as the game script should be negative for the Bengals, probably trailing in a lot of their games. So Tyler Boyd, I think, is a decent pick here. People are sleeping on Tyler Boyd. I think the floor is going to be there. Maybe not the upside that we've seen. The floor, definitely. Zach Moss, the goal line back for that Buffalo Bills. Yes, Josh Allen is going to vulture a bunch of touchdowns in the red zone inside the 5-yard line, like Cam Newton, but nothing to that extent. So Zach Moss, I think, is a decent pick here. But we did go with another running back, Trey Sermon, the last pick. So I'm looking at tight ends, Robert Tonyan and Irv Smith. Robert Tonyan with Aaron Rodgers coming back. Definitely a solid pick here. Irv Smith, tight end out of Alabama. Huge potential coming out of college. I think Irv Smith with Adam Thielen starting to regress as its end zone target. Irv Smith losing Kyle Rudolph, set to be that number one tight end in Minnesota, and we saw Kyle Rudolph for so many years be touchdown dependent and actually give you good touchdown numbers for the tight end position. So I'm going to go with Irv Smith over Robert Tynan for that reason. I think more upside, more volume than Robert Tynan. Robert Tynan will end up with more touchdowns, but we think between the 20s, Irv Smith is due for a better outcome this year. So now that we got all of our positions filled in the starting lineup, we're really just looking for depth pieces at this point. Corey Davis, Damon Harris, Michael Pittman, Antonio Brown, top guys available here. Michael Pittman definitely has upside in that Colts offense with Carson Wentz coming to town. Pittman could look to make a huge jump on this team with T.Y. Hilton aging. Could potentially become the number one wide receiver. Zach Pascal also has that potential, so I'm not totally sold on Michael Pittman. Damon Harris struggling with Cam Newton, vulturing those touchdowns. Mac Jones, if he's able to step in as a starting quarterback at some point this season, Damien Harris, I think, would take an absolute major boost to his fantasy stock. But we can't really predict that. We think Cam Newton is the guy, at least for this year. Mac Jones more the future play. Antonio Brown really looks spicy. I think this is a great value pick. Antonio Brown, a lot of people don't know this, but Antonio Brown actually had more catches than Mike Evans over the past 8 games of the season, which is absolutely ridiculous. If you project Antonio Brown's numbers from the last 8 games of this past year, he actually finishes as a top 24 wide receiver. Ridiculous numbers. For him to go this late with the upside that he has, if he's able to stay on the field, whether that be injury or off the field issues, if he's able to stay on the field with Tom Brady, I think Antonio Brown has a great chance of being a top 30 wide receiver. So getting him this late in drafts, I love this pick right here. At this point in the draft, the top available players, Tony Pollard, Gus Edwards, a couple handcuff running backs. However, we do think Gus Edwards has more value than a handcuff. With Mark Ingram leaving that situation, Gus Edwards could be more of a 60-40 split between he and J.K. Dobbins. So we do love Gus Edwards this season. Let's look at some of the wide receivers. Henry Ruggs and Mikko Harmon, 2 absolute speedsters in the AFC West. I think Mikko Harmon could be due for a breakout season with Sammy Watkins leaving town. Henry Ruggs, second-year wide receiver with Derek Carr. Derek Carr actually had career highs across the board last year. Not a lot of people want to mention that. But Henry Ruggs didn't have a great rookie season as what we expected, but definitely someone to keep our eye on. More of a best ball play, boom or bust on any given week, can go for the deep ball. But we're going to go with Gus Edwards. We really like the running back ability. I really like Gus Edwards right here as a handcuff and as a weekly flex play against the right matchup. We know J.K. Dobbins going to be more of the receiving back, but Gus Edwards definitely provides a lot of, on the number one rushing offense in the league. We really like Gus Edwards, definitely as a flex play and potential RB1 if J.K. Dobbins would to go down. All right, this late in drafts, I'm not really worried about ADP. I'm really just worried about going to get the guy that I like. I don't really like any of the guys at the top of this board right here. Evan Ingram, I'm not sold on. I mean, we've been waiting for him to break out for years now. Now that team has Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, Shepard. I mean, there's too many mouths to feed for Daniel Jones to support, so Evan Ingram, out on him. I'm going down here and I'm looking for Russell Gage, wide receiver for the Atlanta Falcons. Stepped into that number 2 role for the Atlanta Falcons. And we've seen without Julio Jones, Russell Gage actually averages double-digit points for them last season. Small sample size, but still something to consider. This late in draft, if I can get a guy averaging double-digit scoring, I am very excited about that. The potential for Russell Gage is off the charts, especially when you consider the game script that Atlanta Falcons should see this year. Defense struggling a bit. We love Matt Ryan to air it out to Calvin Ridley, Kyle Pitts, Russell Gage. If I can get a piece of this offense this cheap, I think there's absolutely no risk involved. So we love the ceiling for Russell Gage this year. I'll go back at the end and show you the whole board so you got a good look at it. But let's keep moving on, filling out this roster. This is going to be our last position pick of the draft. Then we got our kicker and defense. Adam Troutman, tight end for the New Orleans Saints, sticking out like a sore thumb to me. With the Michael Thomas injury, we know he's going to be out for a significant time. Really no wide receiver on that team that we feel comfortable about. Tre'Quan Smith, yes, he's available, but do we really feel confident Tre'Quan Smith's going to be a solid wide receiver 1? Troutman, with this Thomas injury, could see an elevation in targets. Very high drafted tight end for the New Orleans Saints, so he could have a huge breakout season this late. to be our backup tight end to Irv Smith. I have no problem with it. Troutman is going to be the remove here. That is going to do it for our mock draft. You can see on the screen the board I got here for you. We ended up with a pretty solid team in my opinion. Aaron Jones, DeAndre Hopkins, Allen Robinson, Tyler Lockett to start our draft. Kyler Murray at quarterback. Mike Davis, James Conner to be our RB2. Tight end, Irv Smith. And then we got very good bench, in my opinion. Antonio Brown leading the way. Really love Antonio Brown that late in drafts, so you're able to get him. Trey Sermon and Gus Edwards is two elite handcuffs and actually flex playability, in my opinion, late in drafts. Love that. Russell Gage, we talked about it. Julio Jones out of town. We love Russell Gage coming up this season. We just finished it off with Adam Troutman to be our backup tight end. With Michael Thomas being out, we think the ceiling for Adam Troutman could land himself as a top 10 tight end, so we're definitely okay with that pick. And then we finished out with some kickers and defense. But let's got to wrap it up for the Fantasy Birds first mock draft of 2021 heading into August. We thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week with another episode of Fantasy Birds.